So now let's learn about two new HTML elements. We'll learn now about headings and paragraphs. To put it in perspective, let's remember back to school time when we had to write essays and papers like these that had certain structures like this one here. So we see titles, we see some text, we see a section here, there's an intro, there's a body, there is a conclusion. So those are the three main subsections. And then some of these subsections will have even further subsections, like the body section here has section 1, section 2, section 3, and 4 with paragraph texts in each one. So this structure with the paragraph text is what is accomplished when we use headings and paragraphs inside an HTML document. So let's look how we can code this structure into our web pages. Okay, so you can see that I also have a web matrix open with an empty site. So I'm going to right click on the file pane and say new file, choose an HTML, name it index so it auto loads when I run it in the browser as the home page, and I'm going to click OK. And as we saw before, it's going to automatically pop in some boilerplate HTML for us to get us started. So I'm going to go ahead and first enter a title content value, and I'm going to call this headings and paragraphs, because that's what we're going to be using today. And again, if I save and choose run, it's going to load in the browser, nothing in the body yet, but I can see my title shows in the tab there. So let's start with headings. We see over in our essay structure that there is a main title up here. Well, headings are what describe titles and section names that we see. So our main title is going to be in an H1 heading tag, heading level 1. Here's where you would put the main title of your page document. And a web page should have just one H1 element on it. So one H1 tag per page. Search engines also check it to try to get the main idea of the content. So here's where we put the title. So here I could put my essay title. If I run it like this, we can see it there, my essay title. It's big and bold. We can change how it looks later, but the important thing is the meaning. H1 is the highest level structure in the page, so it's the main idea. Then we can have subsections like introduction, body, and conclusion. And I set all these as H2s. That is the second level of importance in the document structure. So notice there's the main title, and then these intro, body, and conclusion sections are like the second level of importance. So that's going to be H2s. The third level of importance and so on go for H3s. I'm going to just say heading 3 to just show you. And they can go from 1 to 6. So I can have an H4, an H5, and an H6. The highest number is level 6, but a 6 is the 6th level of importance. So it's like 6th place. So it's less important than 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and so on. So if I save this and go back to my browser and refresh, we can see I have an H1 tag here, 3 H2s, and then H3s, 4s, 5, and 6. If I change the text in here, we can actually see the content change, and now it matches. Notice how they get smaller as they go, signifying a lower level of importance. So to mimic the structure here, we see the intro section has text. The body though has 3 subsections. So under this H2 element, which is the body section over here, we would have then 3 other sections that follow it, but they're one level lower importance. And I'm going to get rid of these headings down here. So if I save and refresh, you can see that it's laid out appropriately according to importance or heading level. So we have H1, which is the main idea. We have 3 H2s, which are the most important subsections. And then we have 3 H3s to go one level down. And then underneath here we finally get low enough to where we just have text for the body. So we use paragraphs to actually have our normal text, and those are going to be the paragraph element or P element, which would go open P, close P, tag, paragraphs, and we would say this is a paragraph here. We can save and refresh and see that it is normal paragraph text written in. Traditionally, if you wanted placeholder dummy text, printers for a long time have used what they call some lorem ipsum text. Lorem ipsum text is placeholder dummy text just to have in place, and where it comes from is that it is gibberish Latin from an old Cicero speech. Cicero was an old Latin lawyer who gave great speeches. So we can go to this website lipsum.com, and it will tell you about lorem ipsum and where it comes from, and you can then generate some over here. I'm going to select one paragraph and I'm going to say generate, and it's going to give me some lorem ipsum text here. So I'm going to borrow some of that just to use in my paragraph. And notice when I paste it, it pastes as one super long line. So if I save this and refresh my page, I notice though that it's not one super long line. It will actually wrap according to the width of the screen. So there's your paragraphs. So we can see that there's paragraphs underneath the essay title. We can see that there's one underneath the introduction. We can see there's some in the body sections. And some in the conclusion, and maybe a couple more in section. Actually, there's a section 4. Section 4 will still be an H3 because it's at the 3rd level of importance, just like the other sections. And section 4 actually has a couple paragraphs in it. So if I save and refresh, I will see how the document mimics and follows along with the structure that I have set out. So we have the H1 heading, the H2 introduction, the H2 body, the H3 section 1. Each have their own paragraph texts, and the following sections have their own paragraphs text. Section 4 has a couple paragraphs, and then the conclusion. Notice though that the headings and paragraphs have some space before and after them. They're kind of spaced out and they're a little bit easier to read than my code here. Notice the code is kind of all compressed together. So this shows us that the browser reads the code and renders it on the screen based on rules that it has for how to display paragraphs and H1s through H6s, the headings. So the browser is not drawing the page based on how the code is laid out. So to make the code easier for us to read, we can actually space these out for us and make it more legible and tolerable as much as we want. Any of this white space that we add or take away, or even tabs if we wanted to tab it over, make it look a little bit more like an outline for us, that is up to us essentially, and we can adjust it as we see fit to make it readable for ourselves and for other people. The browser will ignore all this and just render the code according to the rules that it knows about rendering headings and paragraphs. These rules that I'm talking about are called styling, and we will also learn how to style and make different things appear different ways according to our own rules later when we talk about CSS. So that's pretty much it for headings and paragraphs. Remember, headings go from H1 to H6. There should be only one H1 element per page, which is the main title of the page. They have openings and closings tags just like the paragraphs do, and the browser will auto wrap lines and auto render and ignore white space that you put in. So if I put 100 lines here and I save it and I press refresh, we will not see a big gap anywhere in the drawn page because the browser ignores any extra white space. So that does it for headings and paragraphs.